part of it is just having to hold someone else, right? I'm tired, and I'm emotionally tired. And some of the tears are, I think, about fear, to sitting in front of a group of teachers that I always feel like you guys probably know just as much as I do, because you're out in the trenches, right? And I joined Minneapolis Music Teachers Forum as a young teacher when I was 26. And an older mentor of mine put her arm, took her wing around me and introduced me to these women. And I feel like I learned everything I know about teaching from those rooms and from people, members like you in organizations like this, standing in front and giving your experience. And so I get sort of teared up about that as well. And I'm also just overwhelmed because I'm finally ready to start teaching on Monday. I have my schedule to go, and because I was on my butt on the couch and my foot up all summer, I did lots of organizing for all my students, and I need to have I type up for the assignments I have from there. And I have all the first assignment ready to go for next week. So I'm excited, and so I just welcome everybody today, and it's such an exciting time of year. I think it can be. I was talking with a couple teachers before, we were like, a week ago, we were like, I don't want to go back to teaching. I had sort of I told Monday, I just had lost my SAP contest repertoire and sort of lost my passion. I was like, nothing was singing out to me, and I thought, I lost my passion for music. How am I going to go back and teach? And then, of course, it comes back. I have to remember those nowadays. So I think it's a really exciting time to be talking about, especially the intermediate student and the middle schooler, and to just look at what we do and how we do it. And so I thank you for coming, and yeah, so it's all good. So today I'm going to be presenting some ideas which I found helpful to sustain the student population through the middle school years. I will say, I have a fortunate situation. I teach in a parochial school, and I get to take kids from the classroom. I've been there 15 years, and at first people that were like, who are you? And they went, there's a lot of great teachers in the neighborhood and stuff, but I really built up my reputation. I had 70 students last year, and only 6 students that didn't continue. One moved to Winona, and she'll continue to take. One graduated from high school. 2 of them graduated from 8th grade, so they don't know logistics of it. One is actually going to go to another teacher. Our personalities and our philosophies are different, and so I graciously said, here's some other women that I think will be more suited toward you, and I think they're going to ready to leave anyway. One is, just logistically, is not going to work out. There were 2, a 2nd grader who stuck it out for 2 years. She was above average, but just didn't have an interest. Both me and her mom knew that. We took her through last year. We did our best. And another 6th grader that I didn't do all of these things with, and so I didn't prepare her to enter the year. So it's, I don't know, it's just really exciting. I don't know why I got up on that story, but I don't know, I love what I do. I love my students, and so I just think that's what, we have to remember too, it's a little hurrah. My junior high teacher hero is Miss Lisa Sabota. She teaches 6th grade social studies and 8th grade English at the parochial school where I have my piano studio, and these are the qualities I observe in her. She's super knowledgeable about the subject she teaches. She just knows what she's talking about. She sets clear boundaries with the children. She has high expectations of them, but she's empathetic and helpful. And she uses a variety of activities, sometimes with the whole class, sometimes in small groups, and sometimes they're individual projects. So one time I asked her, I said, Lisa, what's the secret to your success? And part of her answer was, she said, I think middle schoolers and toddlers are very similar. And so she enters the field with that sort of mind. And I think her wisdom about that speaks to both the challenges of behavior management, you can imagine a toddler, and it makes me a little bit more patient with the middle schoolers if I think of them like toddlers. Because with toddlers, you just have fun and play, right? And you just have, I think I have stricter expectations of the middle school students to sit up and listen and do what they're told. And so the second half of that, it speaks to the challenge of the behavior management, but I think it also speaks to the opportunities that we have with this population for creativity and fun. And I think sometimes because they're entering that intermediate stage, which is so exciting because it's a launching point if they ever make it to the advanced stage, that we forget to allow that creativity and allow fun. I mean, that's for me. I get very serious, and we've got to learn about the 1/6/4 chord and how it leads to the dominant and the cadence. And so anyway, James Bastian says, this point in time is crucial in a student's development because the student must make it through the stage to realize his ultimate potential in the higher spheres of piano playing. And I think this is really exciting to think about, especially in light of the students that have made it through these years. Can I just see a show of hands of how many teachers have started a student like kindergarten through 3rd grade and had them continue all the way through a senior in high school? Yeah, good, about half the group. And even maybe into 9th or 10th grade. A few of you. Yeah, you know that you get to witness a sort of a synthesis of skills and ownership of music that sort of fits into their identity. They go different paths. If you have a studio like mine, which I'm going to talk about my best friend, Suzanne Greer. I don't know if some of you know her, but she's got very high. I remember when she was first starting her studio, and she's like, well, what do you think? I'm thinking about having a no makeup policy. I said, well, if that's what you want, sort of, I say this later, is to sort of build it and they will come. You decide what your philosophy is, and you set those standards, and those are the people you will eventually attract. Now, I don't. I was not that kind of a student. I was very disciplined. I was a little bit all over the board, and so I just sort of that's the kind of student I attract, and I sort of let go of my expectations when they're in the middle school years. But so when I see them get to high school, my students are. Some of them are still in a state contest, and they're still doing that kind of thing. But a lot of them are more maybe popular music, or just doing their own kind of thing, picking their own maybe more jazz, or maybe they just love Catherine Mullen, beautiful preludes, or they want to do all the fast pieces or whatever it is. But they find that how music fits into their own identity. So so I renamed this title. When Mim emailed me about a month ago. What's your title and where's your outline? And I'm like, oh, what am I going to say? And I'm not good about catchy titles, so I was thinking of a slope and getting them over that little hump, and so that they can continue going. And as I was writing, I retitled it at the top, Going Toe to Toe with the Beast, Sustaining Music Lessons Through the Middle School Years. And why I sort of, not to make out the middle schooler to be an ugly sort of character, right, and a scary character, but my first experience with the Beast was Alicia when I was in my 20s. And I remember I used to go to homes, and she would look up at me with her adoring eyes at the time. And she said, one day she said to me, when I grow up, I want to be a librarian or a music teacher. And I just thought, oh, she was so easy to teach. And then she entered the 7th grade. And then suddenly I felt like the enemy, as her face contained sneers and eye rolls. I struggled to find music to keep her interest because she was no longer the perfect student who followed through on almost every detail of her weekly assignments. So we really managed slowly through those couple years, working on only 1 or 2 pieces a year until she entered the 9th grade. And then presto changeo, I had the sweet Alicia back, And so if you do ever get that experience, and I'm hoping that this is true of you who have raised your hands and had them for a longevity of time, you do go through, I say it's 2 years, like if they start in 5th grade, they're done by 7th. I had a girl that was really sweet, and I thought, oh my gosh, she's not going to go through that. In 9th grade, she just became horrible, and I thought, okay, I think they all go through it, maybe a little, can flux, but just being sort of prepared for that. And then when they come around on the other side, it's really fun to have them, like my graduating senior, Katie, who I still get teary-eyed, and I'll talk about her a little bit later, who left last, she graduated last spring. Anyway, so I really feel like it was a quite shocking experience for me, and I felt prepared. And so I have these 3 sort of, on your handout, I think my first sort of idea is, I think we really need to remember our own assets. I think in trying to, accommodate them and accommodate their experience, sometimes we can lose sight of our own, what we bring as a successful piano teacher. Number one, I think, and that's what meetings like this do, right, is number one, we need to have a knowledge of our craft. So remember your own studies if you went through college, or with your teacher if you take lessons now, and really know, what makes a healthy technique, what are the performance practices of this I think that's really important. I think also, and I'm going to talk a little bit about this one later on as well, I've heard from Marvin Blickenstaff, who is my favorite pedagogue in the world. If you've never seen I don't know, who doesn't know who Marvin Blickenstaff is out in New Jersey? He studied with Francis Clark and teaches out and has his school in New Jersey. And if you ever get to see a master class with him, he's just, I go just to hear his language, to bring his language back to my students, his enthusiasm. But he really talks, the last time I heard him, well, one of the last times I heard him talk, he said, we really need to have knowledge of our methodology. We really need to be clear about that. You know, how are you teaching reading? Do you have a real firm method of how you're teaching students to read? Do you have a way of how you present and follow through on a healthy technique? And how do you teach the art of listening? How do you incorporate that? How do you get students to really listen to what they're doing? I think we also need a discipline with our own practice. I mean, I don't practice every day, but I am an undisciplined person. I was a horrible teenager and high schooler and very arrogant and I was very rebellious against authority. And I've learned as I get older, I brush my teeth every day now. I mean, that's a simple one. But, you know, I don't practice the piano really, but I try to incorporate that. I really try to be disciplined in my preparations for teaching and looking at my day as I go into it and thinking about the students other than that 30 minutes a lesson. You know, what are my visions? What are my goals for the year? And then what are my goals for this week? And then what are my goals for the lesson? And then also, I think, remember our passion for making music. You know, this is, again, this is not just about completing the theory assignment or learning where middle C is, but it's really about making music. And when I get in the nuts and bolts of teaching, sometimes I want them to get to page 78 today. I forget to make music. So I think, I know you maybe came for strategies of keeping them continuing, but I just think these things are so important. And I think let's keep these in mind as now we turn to the qualities of the adolescent. So the nature of the beast, right? When they get to that stage, so here are some characteristics of human nature, characteristics of all teenagers, and then also I think I broke this into two parts, also the student nature. What are some different things that are happening specifically with this level, the intermediate level? So you guys may know a lot about this, but they're going through a great transition in their physical and mental development. And Suzanne Schoens, and you know her, teaches at KNS Studio, I believe, and at St. Thomas University, gave a workshop, and I did not do my research before I'm talking about this, but I remember one point I found interesting is that she talked about the intellectual part of the brain, I think is pretty much fully formed, but the emotional part of the brain, I think, which is the frontal lobe, the intellectual part surpasses the emotional part. And so it sort of makes sense, you know, where they are, because they've got this intelligence and this independence about them, but emotionally, like my friend Lisa Sabota says, they're kind of somewhat more of a toddler mentality. And I know watching my nieces go through this time, they make some real goofy choices. And we just pray that they get through that all safely. But it's, they also, because of all of this, they face higher and greater sources of anxiety. My 18-year-old niece lately was explaining to us adults the changes of behavior of her sister who's entering the 7th grade. Because we know Rosie's not the sweet little girl anymore, she's a 7th grader. And Elizabeth explained, the 18-year-old said, well, when you're in junior high, you hate just about everything about yourself. You know, so she's just like, you know, so of course she's doing this or that, you know, she's just struggling inside. And so I don't think they all hate everything about themselves, and certainly there's more well-adjusted. But there is students, but there is sort of this sort of turmoil stuff going on. Their bodies are undergoing a surge of hormones, and so they're awakening to the sexual self for the first time. They have a need for status and independence, which I think that independence is important when we're dealing with this age group, to open up choices and bring them into the goal setting, right? Because they have a need for that. Also, the peer recognition and acceptance become important, and I think we all know this, that, well, they're comparing each other. So sometimes competition can be good. Sometimes for the less gifted student, that may not be a good thing. But group activities, things to get them with their peers is really helpful. They can be moody and apathetic, which is sometimes you get the beast show up on a day and you just can't, they won't listen to you, they won't try anything you want to try. So, and then I think the biggest reason that a lot of teachers talk about, they're just, what we have the data for is the demands on their time with more challenging academics, especially. I've noticed from when I first started teaching 30 years ago, And now with all that AP, and I have students that are graduating, they're only doing 3 years of college because they're getting it done in preschool, and they're saying the 3-year-old has this capacity to learn, and yes, they have a capacity to learn. Does that mean that we need to impress it upon them? You know what? But it's a part of our world. So challenging academics, and of course outside academics or outside activities, the extracurriculars become more important. So that's what we're battling. So other aspects to consider and challenges that occur during this phase of development. I remember Marianne Fleming Bryan, when I studied with her in my master's degree, said, Susan, the majority of students who take lessons will only reach an intermediate stage of playing. So I think that's important to remember. And that is okay, right? We can still sustain maybe the less gifted student, maybe to 11th through 12th grade, and never expect that they might even not even, well, play a big Beethoven sonata. Maybe they do the sonatinas or just maybe do an invention, you know? That's okay. They don't all have to do that senior A contest repertoire. You're familiar with MFTA, you know, the things that I would have to practice 2 hours a day to be able to do that. There's a wide range of levels between early intermediate and advanced intermediate repertoire. And that's something in my own teaching, I'm just beginning to recognize the elements that might be in a more advanced intermediate. I think I've tried to teach that summer nocturne by Catherine Rowland, and I think it looks easy to me. It's in the key of G. The left hand, you know, this I tell this is from Bach to rock. This shape and then Bach. Yeah, I tell them that this is an important shape to know. And I saw the rolling chords in the summer nocturne when I started teaching, but I didn't notice that sometimes it does the 6 between 5 and 2, and sometimes it goes up to the 10th, and sometimes the 9th, and that's a lot of changes for somebody who might be more at the early intermediate or mid-intermediate. That is really, I'm seeing it more, there's things that I didn't, stepping stones that I didn't have my students do for that. So I think really getting to know that repertoire and really pacing it well is important to be aware of. Students may develop more slowly through the body of work and in the synthesis of abilities involved. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, about, you know, so I teach them intervals, and they maybe learn a triad. Okay, now they get to branch out into maybe a harmonic octave that moves in seconds. You know, things are starting to, they're starting to take that knowledge and use it in a longer, bigger way. And then this is something that I hear other teachers struggle with, is just trying to keep all those levels of musicianship moving ahead at a similar pace. So moving through more repertoire than just one challenge piece maybe, and keeping up with the rigors of technical workouts, right, and keeping them doing the music theory. And then finally, this is a time when we may lose the less gifted or uninterested. Now, again, I'm really more willing to let go of the uninterested student. I really work hard to try to get their interest, and I'll talk about what I think is important about capturing their interest. But at 6th, 7th, 8th grade, if you don't have it and they're starting to just fight, I think it's, I don't know, you might have the secret to success, but I think it's almost a done deal, I think. That's how I'm feeling today. The less gifted, I really think I have Abby Keekstra is one of my 6th graders this year, and she reminds me of the character in Peanuts with the messy hair and just the swirl of dirt going on her. And she's really kind of clueless about her abilities. I thought, she works, you know, she comes in and she thinks she knows it all, but she's not to the stage that, well, Ella is in her grade. And Ella is above average. She did, as a 5th grader, did that solfeggio. And the reason I could teach it to her in 2 months is because she knew all her major and minor pentatonics, and she knew the theory, right? And she just, you know. And I remember before the recital, Abby said to me, and Abby was doing clog dance, I can't remember how it was, it's the Martha Muir from Just Imagine the Book What. But she, you know, she did this, a scale, these fast notes, and she said out loud, she said, I can't wait till the girls, you know, Ella hears me. And I was thinking in her mind, she had gotten to where they were. Well, she did get to where they were maybe in the fall, but they had all, you know, they were still a jump ahead of her. So I kind of put her first in the studio class, and so she could feel good about herself. So that's, I think about Abby, she's going to continue this year, but she is a less gifted student, but I'm always trying to find a way for her to connect with her music and feel good about what she's doing. But those are the kids that in the past, you know, just kind of lose. Okay, so armed with these facts, there are a variety of solutions that can help us sustain their interest in piano study. And I'll just see if I can do these in 30 minutes. I titled this Strategies for Running Out. I'm going to spend a lot of time with these first A and B, which I think are so important. And what I said is that uninterested sixth grader, you sort of lost them. What I'm beginning to believe in the past, I started to believe this about 6 years ago, and I've sort of incorporated it, and I have an amazing 6th through 8th grade population right now, 6th and 7th graders, and a few high schoolers. And you just need to create that interest, you need to begin from the very beginning. I think there's things that we need to plant in their first 3 years of playing. So I know you look for strategies, so what to do with the intermediate student now? Well, you may not be able to apply this to the people that you came listening for today, but go back and think about that about the first or second grader that you're starting this year. I think the very basics of theoretical and technical knowledge, as well as the discipline to, I heard somebody get to the bench. Some parents asked me, how often should a student practice every day, or a week? And I said, well, 10 minutes for every grade there until they're in 3rd grade, and then we negotiate. And 5 days, 30 minutes a day is great. But I said, just get, I don't always think of it as practice. Just get to the bench. Get to the bench every day. And some days, like I know from my own practice, I'm just learning the partita. And the first day I worked on that, I studied it, and I was like, I don't think I want to get this part. And then came back the next day, and I'm like, I don't want to work on this again. I tried it, nothing's, but then another day, so then I just kind of played what I knew, and I just tried to memorize the first phrase. And then what I'm saying here is that some days I'm ready to go, I'm going to tackle the fugue today. I'm going to get the fingering, and there's other days I'm just going to review what I did yesterday, or I'm just going to work on the pieces I have to play for Mass this weekend. I'm not even going to work on the Bach today, and just finding that balance. But getting to the bench every day, I say, like if you're going to run a marathon, it's just important. Maybe you don't run 26 miles every day, but just get out and maybe walk around the block at the very least, right? So get to the bench. So we try to get that discipline starting in the very beginning, okay? As part of my master's program, Dr. James Goldsworthy asked this question, and he taught beginning pedagogy, and he was just an amazing mind. And this is what he said to us. He said, what are the seeds we need to plant in the first 15 weeks of instruction that will enable the student to play Beethoven's Opus 11 when he or she is 50? What a big question, like what? And that was our final project, is to create an actual 15-week curriculum that thinking about the skills that were needed to play this monumental sonatina and how to incorporate those ideas in the very first lessons. So I did use that for a while. I don't actually use those assignments anymore, but over time I have developed a system of teaching note reading technique and artistry that sort of establishes independence in the student, so that by the time they're in 6th grade, they're becoming music literate. They're sitting tall with both feet on the piano, and with the bench. I use my yoga for just, feeling good. It's not like sit up, just bring your spine up and have space so your arms have space so this morning can move, and just working on that structure over and over in the beginning 3 years, so that they come and they're ready to play their intermediate repertoire. So I get off. Okay, so in conjunction with this, begin at the very beginning, is know your methodology. So again, I'm talking about your philosophy. How many are NCTM's National Certified Teachers of Music? We have a few of those. Good for you. I started the little program, and I'm like, well, I don't think I know that one. But I did do the one piece, which is write your philosophy. So go home, sometime this year, I challenge all of you, that's your assignment for today's workshop, is sometime during this year, sit down and write your philosophy of teaching. And you learn more about yourself, and you get a little bit more clear about what you bring to the studio. Marjorie Lee, I think it's Marjorie Lee, she's this amazing teacher I witnessed. She gave a workshop and had her students, actually she brought 12 of her students in to play at one of the national conferences. And she said, when most students begin, they don't know what they want, right? Their parents just sign them up for lessons and they come, right? Kindergarten, I started four-year-old last year, it was great. I love kindergarten, 1st grade. So their parents sign them up for lessons, but when they reach about the 6th grade, they begin to know what they want. So that goes with that description of the student, right? And she says it's our job to give them the skills they need so that then they can make their own choices, right? So that goes with our methodology. Bev Krall, does anybody know Bev Krall here? She was my very best friend when 26 again. She's one of the women who took me under her wing and shared with me. She's a really great friend. Anyway, she said, she used to always say this, and I used to, I kind of disagree with her in the beginning. But she kept saying, I thought, she's so strict, she's such a strict teacher. Students need, she said, Susan, students must learn how to read music. That's the most important thing. All this adding dynamics for kindergarten, she says, they don't need to do that yet. And I do incorporate some of that stuff. So that's where I parted philosophies with her. I try to incorporate both now. But she said, she says if they can't do that, they can't do anything, which is true. And you know you have those middle school those kids that come in and, okay, you know, they want to learn this really hard piece. You force feed it, right? They don't know what they're doing, but you get them, you get this pattern, right? Okay, you recognize where that's from? Right? And so I teach them that pattern. I think they can understand A minor. They don't know what A minor is. They don't know. And they get it in the lesson. They go home. They don't remember. They can't read the music. They come back the next week. So we go through the drill, get it in. So unless they can read the music really, then I feel like, you know, that thing about if I feed a man a fish, you know, he eats for a day, but if I teach him how to fish, he fishes for a lifetime. And so as a teacher, I can teach one piece at a time, but that gets very frustrating. The middle schoolers. That's what I used to do anyway. I don't know if any of you do that, but that's the rut that I got into with dealing with middle schoolers. So Bev's goal was to have the students independently learning Mozart sonatas by the 6th grade. And that's what her students did. She had by the Broder edition, and she marked in all the fingering because they had to know their fingering. They weren't at the point where they could be independent with that. But then they went home and they read it. And then, of course, I said this already, but Mark and staff said we must know our methodology. I would encourage you all this year as you go forward, at the beginning of this year, start, you know, bring this along with you this year. Pay attention to the materials you're using, right? Does it go along with your philosophy of how you teach? Is it working? Is it not working? You know, maybe it's already working for you. More importantly, how you use the materials. Because the other thing Goldsworthy had us do is, he would, for example, the time to begin, learning the seconds like this, you know, 2 hands. And one thing I wanted my students use both hands, so I was still using time to begin a little bit, but I believe in the landmark system, but I wanted them to use the whole hand, so I changed those up and down stems. I tell them, not this, you're going to use fingers 2 and 3. So I changed the book so that they're doing one hand with those, and I wanted them to hands like this instead of this, right? So that's just one example of, you know, how are you using the methods? Just because you love the pieces in the Favorite Adventures method doesn't mean that you have to teach the concepts exactly how they're teaching them, maybe. So, or go in the order that they go in. So know how you're using those methods. And most importantly, follow through on the outcome for each student. And that's something I just started really doing the last couple of years. There's 3 things that really changed my teaching the last 5 years. Marjorie Lee at the national conference and my experience of working with her kids. She would, she stood across the room and she had students from maybe 5 or 6-year-old was the youngest, and then a 12 or 13-year-old. And as they were playing, she'd be, and then she'd say, Joe, play that piece again. So maybe he had a really easy piece. Okay, I'm just going to something out. Okay, and she said, what is the note that's not filled in? So, oh, the half note. Right, yeah, how many beats? 2 beats. Will you play that piece again and listen for 2 beats on all your half notes? So the first time he might have done this, right? He played the whole thing. Great, now boom. Now let's go to the next piece, okay? Joe, what does the F and P mean? And she listened to the whole piece. Quiet and loud. Can you play this again? So what she was doing is, and then one kid played this really fast Bach piece. Oh, he had 3 starts. He started, right? And he was nervous, you know, he didn't get it. So then he started, the 3rd time she said, oh, stop. She said, Brian, she said, since you're just going to start over again, she said, this time when you play, just let your fingers play. And then he just, boom, got through it. So the way she was listening, she was, I think as teachers, we're diagnosticians. And so she was listening for what she wanted them to listen, and she used the Suzuki, my Suzuki friend, Suzanne Gert, talks about the 1-point teaching, which I get to the end, I'm like, can you make your half notes 2 beats, and don't forget to add the quiet and the loud, and when you get to the end, lift your wrist. I mean, if I find myself giving more than one direction, I say, that teacher today, it's like, we can't text and drive, right? That's an illusion, so we're gonna just listen for one thing. But she listened, and then asked them to listen, and I've been doing that, and all of a sudden I realized that, oh, I've been teaching quarter notes, but I haven't been following through if they have steady those quarter notes, or I taught the quarter note half note 3 months ago, but am I really listening? Are they really understanding that? And have you ever gotten to the 6th grade, the middle school, and you're like, oh, look at this, P at the beginning of your score, what does that mean? And they're like, or I said, add your dynamics, this is what I said to a 7th grader once. Will you listen for dynamics this time? And he's like, well, what are dynamics? And I'm like, oh, you studied with me for 4 years, and okay, I had another student who was doing the white heat. And then there was a rest at the end. For 6 weeks, I'd say, Gabe, you got it? Circle in red, circle first week. Circle in red, second week. Stars, look for the rest. 6th week, he's like, well, it's just a rest. And I was like, oh, just a rest. No, it's important. And if any of you are Facebook friends with Rory Thompson, I guess he wrote a great little blurb on the rest. Metaphysical too. Anyway, so I find that I don't always follow through in those beginning stages. And it's very important, begin at the beginning, make sure we're following through, and making sure that they're getting these concepts, right? I don't know if this is me. I get a lot of times my students in the past 30 years, I get to the stage and really everything I thought I was teaching them, they really were not learning, so that, following through. Okay, so, and then I just want to say one more thing about listening. Nalita True, I heard a story at a conference, and she said there was this guy that taught up at Henry Lockett, and she said she just was amazed every time she went up there. Anybody who studied with Frank such just really listened well, and then she got one of his students came to study with her at Eastman School of Music, and she said, wow, I love your teacher, just all his students listen so well. How does he get you to listen? The student said, well, he asks us to listen. I was like, okay, so I've been using that word a lot more in my studio. What do you hear? Or listen for this before I have them play. This time when you play, and what I try to do is not give a lot of instruction in the middle, but I try to listen to maybe a whole piece if I can, or just a section. Sometimes it's a phrase. I've been trying to hear a little bit more and let them play, because that's what they want to do, especially the middle schooler. And then maybe I'll hear 3 or 4 or 5 things that I want them to work on, and I'll decide the top 2 maybe, and then I'll say, we'll play it again. And I do exactly what Marjorie did, and just say, okay, listen for this, blah, blah, blah. They get it. They have struggle. It's like, let's just try that one more time, and then, okay, this is your assignment. I want you to do 3 times, I want you to listen to the chord, whatever. But then I may add one more layer at the lesson. But I get them to play more, and I try to listen, and I try to get them to listen. Again, that leads more to independence, I think, too. And then know your expectations and clearly communicate them. And this really speaks a little bit to the communication between student, parent, and teacher. Okay, I have one student right now, Liv Rustin. She's in 8th grade, and she came to me last year as a transfer student. And she has a friend, and the friend has the 3 siblings study with me and heard all these great things about me as a teacher. So they want to transfer, but the mom said she's really busy with soccer. She's in the Blackhawk soccer, if you know that, on the south end of town. They're there all the time. And they travel to Sweden and the soccer team. And she said, she really wants to continue playing, but she's really busy. So would you be willing to do every other week? Ooh, hard. I said, I would be willing to try it. Okay, so this is what I do with Liv, and this is what I'm starting to do with some of my high schoolers. This is just my expectation and what I've communicated with the parent and the student. So we're all on board. So if this is not part of your philosophy, then you don't do it, because you'll become resentful and it won't work. But Liv comes, we sign up, I billed her for 10 lessons for this to December, and we figured out what dates she's going to come. It's almost every week. There's 2. This first week, she'll come 2 weeks in a row, and in December before the studio class, and then the recital, she'll come actually 3 weeks in a row. And we'll choose the pieces, and she's very she is self-motivated and independent, and last year she had an okay year, and so I let it go with that trial year. It went really well. She's making progress. She says she's learning more. Again, what I worked on with her is the synthesis of some of these skills that another teacher got to start with her, and then just, transfer some of my students to yours, so you do like, Paul, what's doing with them. But, I just filled in the gaps for some reason that she hadn't gotten at that point. So, in communication, right? I was here speaking with a panel a year ago with the St. Paul teachers, and that was the big thing everybody agreed with, is communication, setting goals and expectations with the parent, need the parents on board, and the student, the middle school student gets to decide too. So there's my big soapbox on just methodology and the beginning. Again, James Bastian speaks to the effect of quality preparation in the student's formative years. So James Bastian, Mr. Bastian agrees with me. He says, and then I love this, he says, working with this age group can be rewarding because signs of pianistic accomplishment are beginning to emerge. Technique and musicianship are evolving into more structured and unified whole. So I think that's what Liv is, she had some pianistic accomplishments beginning to emerge, and I just got to feed on that and direct her. And she's working on a hook sonatina, and she worked on the Bach prelude last year, and she can read notes, and so we really worked on shaping the phrases and listening, whatever it is, I don't know the chord progression, but how the chord progression shapes the phrase, and where we're going to breathe, and she did a lovely, in just the half year that I worked with her, she did a beautiful performance of the recital. I was happy with herself. It's enough for her. And but again, I'll say it one more time and then I'll move on. Helping students get off to a great start is crucial for the success of most of the suggestions that follow, I believe. So here's some more specific things. Even students who have achieved a basic music literacy will need time for development through the intermediate level. So know how far you're willing to flex your standards and expectations. I'm very flexible, as you can see. I have about 3 or 4 students that just pay 10 lessons, and if they're sick or they got extra theater rehearsal, boom, they're all at the end of my day. So when they don't come, I'm done earlier. When they come, I teach later. And parent gives me the check up in advance. It's all paid on the first. So once they have 10 lessons, then we reevaluate where are we in the year and how much we want to do. My friend Suzanne Greer, no, it's not that way in her studio. And she's got higher expectations, and that's the kind of student that she attracts. So, if you're disagreeing with me, you just decide what you're going to do. Now, she has, when they come in at age 4 or age 3 to study Suzuki with her, the parents come for 6 to 10 weeks first for parent orientation. And part of that orientation, she says, is that this is not just a year or 2 program where they're going to have fun with music. This is an education. It's about music literacy. It's about appreciation of music. They're gonna learn the classics. We do pops, but this is my expectation, and the parents are on board with that. And so most of her students that are in the junior high year, some early high schoolers. I even traveled out to Seattle this summer to go to a master class with Sydney Pollack. So that's what she's attracting, and that's what her expectations. So there's no, I guess I say that in my closing. It's we're independent piano teachers, right? We're autonomous. So anyway, so just knowing, I think you need to know for yourself how willing are you to flex your standards and expectations. And if you're not that flexible, then you cut it loose, right, at that age, or you prepare them to get through it. If you're flexible, then you may have all kinds of cool things that you do, like these middle schoolers and things and all music. So repertoire, some different suggestions about repertoire with middle schooler. Give them lots of repertoire. And I try to get my students playing a lot. When they first get, reading at this age, I have a couple really brainy 7th grade girls. They're always, every week they come with a thick book. One was reading Conan Doyle, the Sherlock Holmes author. I don't even know him, Sir Conan. That's what she was reading last year, to Harry Potter, to everything. Every week they've got a book that thick that they're a different book every week. These girls are voracious readers. And I think that sometimes we get stuck in pieces that are a little bit too advanced for the student and don't get them just reading a lot, experiencing a lot of different styles and different, like reading, just different levels of grammar too, learning new words. As we think about the language of music and the variety of patterns on there. Pay attention to boredom versus frustration. There's that spectrum. So if they're frustrated, maybe you're giving them too much, you need to back up, give them something easy, do something. If they're bored, then you need to give them another challenge. But we go in between that flux. Look for music at an appropriate artistic maturity that will continue to develop more challenging note reading, technique, and finger patterns. So I talked about the Roland thing. There's certain things I should have done before I will now, before summer nocturne, because I have not had, I realized what my error was on that. And I think as best we can, we try to keep a balance of diet of classical, teaching pieces of popular styles, but again, are you ready to throw out your curriculum and ride the wave of their whims? I do a little bit. Listen to them and find out what they want. So I gave everybody, last year I decided I wanted to give really hard pieces for the recital in March. I talked to a lot of them and I said, we're going to pick out a challenge piece for the recital. So I gave them a decision, I gave them some choices. And this Avery came in and she said, you know, May likes all the fast, really loud pieces. And she said, I love slow, quiet, gentle pieces. And she hadn't said that out loud, you know, I was trying to give everybody these, you know, or pieces that'll flash, or the Giovanni, or I haven't taught for a while, the Tarantella, Vico, you know. But you kind of know what they want. Anyway, so I am going to do a big thing on teaching popular because I think this is a big request we get from a lot of our students. I think the first point here is find good arrangements. My favorites are Philip Kevrin, Randall Faber, and Dan Coates Forever. Just are my favorites. I tell them when they go to the store, I'm like, well, go pick out, you know, songs that you like. Because I don't know, the last 20 years I'm out of it as far as Maroon 5, some students said to me, and I'm like, I don't keep up with it anymore, honey. And I don't, she's like, well, wait, what station do you listen to? I don't actually listen to music, I listen to talk radio. I'm like the cobbler, you know, who's got his kids go shoeless. I'm like, I've had enough music all day. But anyway, she was sort of fine. But anyway, so I tell them, you figure out, I say 5 finger and big note are the baby pieces, okay? So you see 5 finger and big note, those are the easy pieces. If it says easy piano, because they come and they say, we saw easy piano, so they get advanced, right? I'm like, I can't play, you know, with all that. So I say easy piano is really intermediate. It's the people that are labeling these aren't really piano teachers and not up with where we really are, and, you know, but they're beautiful arrangements. I tell some of them, I say, I even use that sometimes for weddings. A Paco Canon, I had a Schultz, Robert Schultz arrangement that was pretty easy, and I think they're more fun to play than the sheet music arrangements. So that's what I have them look for, the easy piano. And those. Also, I tell them to look out for the piano vocal arrangements. How many times they get their favorite piece, and then we explain. It's a wonderful opportunity. Notice the 3 stabs and the grand piano. Maybe we learned about the grand stab at your second year of piano. You know that means it's the piano. This is the vocal part. And notice how the melody is not in this. That's why it doesn't sound right. And so I say, if you get the piano vocal, are you willing to sing? And I had a 10th grade boy several years ago wrestling, and he just all this. And he did a Billy Joel piece, and he liked to sing, and he did, and he actually did it for recital. And he played the accompaniment part and then sang. But I tell him, most of them are like, oh, we don't want to sing. So then I say, well, then look for these usually. Now, we used to get that sheet music, right, the piano vocal. And now, what I've discovered, and my students taught me this, is the YouTube tutorials. How many have used YouTube tutorials with your students? Just a great resource. Sometimes I say, you want to just go search it on YouTube, and then let's work on our blog, we do that here. But it's a good place to start. And there's sometimes I've gone through it with them. I think it's a great way to incorporate music theory concepts and to inspire improvisation and to get them to write their student arrangement. Now, I don't remember, I should have all this really prepared, but I don't know, remember the somewhere, it's the Adele piece that was really popular a couple years ago, and then whatever it was, you know. And I said, oh, this is just that. And so then I said, I'm just making some up right now, but you know, the chord, I changed it, you know, I was doing my own little arrangement, and they're like, oh, do you know that piece? How do you know that piece? You know, and I'm like, I said, this is what you could do. If you know F sharp, C sharp, D, F sharp, you can make your own arrangement. So then we'll have Somewhere Like You by Adele arranged by Flannery Dahlberg. And woo, you know, it's like we can do this together. And so they get excited, and they're learning music theory, right? They care about major, minor chords. Also, it's an opportunity, I believe, to discuss elements of artistry, balance of voices, and creating contrasts with phrasing dynamics and articulation. So my two examples, Rosa studied a piece on her own at home and she wrote out the melody. She had just like, you know, black notes, just up and down on the staff. And so she came and she said she wanted help with it. I had no clue she was doing this. And I said, sure, I can. First of all, the first day we edited it. Let's do the rhythm. We added the 8 notes and bar lines and things like that. We figured out what key it was in. And then I helped her learn the chords and work out the timing. She ended up scoring that whole piece on her own. So look at that, those skills, writing music, really learning her notes, and listening, and she actually performed it at a festival. Now Flannery, who started as a 4th grader, and up until the 6th grade, I'd say, what note is this? And I don't know. And I'm like, what? You know, it's like, Flannery, we talked about this. See the treble clef? You see the hidden G? See this line? What is it? The hidden G, you know? So she brought her phone actually to the lesson. And so it's coming down, and whatever the melody was, she had been playing that, and she said, but I'm really confused. And I said, oh, these are just chords. They came down. And again, I figured out the chord progression, kind of wrote it, kind of taught her by rote, and she was able to work out hands together on note. I think there was one place where it was kind of tricky. There were several sections repeated due to the lyrics. So we discussed form, verse, chorus, verse, chorus, verse, chorus, bridge, maybe verse, chorus, maybe little tag, chorus, something like that. And we realized that without singing again, without the lyrics, it was kind of a boring form. And she ended up we figured it out. I think we did like A, B, A, C, B, A, or something like that. And so we talked about form. And we also talked about balancing melody and accompaniment. We talked about shaping expressive phrases and breathing between the phrase. She brought out the contrast of each section. That one did, and then it went back to kind of pretty. So we talked about contrast like in sonatinas. And I witnessed a new beauty in her tone production. When she played, mostly she was reading music, so it's sort of taught me how to do the shoulders down, and after she played that, she just looked so cool at the piano. Of course, her friends think she's cool. She gets that peer recognition. And the next piece she came with at the lesson was Carlyleans by Kernberger in her Joy of Classics book. And all of a sudden, what note is this? Oh, this is E. This is A. And she's, it's a hard contrapuntal piece, and she's getting it. And so it's interesting how just that willing to just be flexible, let her kind of talk about what you can, incorporate the theoretical, technical elements, and then they're able to bring that back and hopefully come to their music. So I'm also going to talk about the MMTA, Popular Styles Resources. Has anybody explored the Popular Styles through MMTA if you're an MMTA teacher? I love Jim, were you part of that? That's right. Oops.
Yes, I
Oh, that's right. I saw your name. I am paying attention. Anyway, it's, well, then I'm going to sort of tell myself a little bit here, but the information and practical assignments about specific styles and patterns it's a great resource. I've not used it yet. And also what I love is the emphasis on listening. And even if you're just a junior students, listening assignments, I think the actual worksheet is an online thing. I haven't gone that far to explore that. I haven't used it, and I haven't bought the materials yet. But I would recommend looking into that if you're teaching popular styles. So, but what it taught me about that emphasis on listening, Alec, 11th grader this summer, Alec has a hard time paying attention, and he goes off on tangents, and he said, I had a hard time staying focused, like on his Bach, or his Beethoven, a piece that he's working on. And I said, well, did you practice? Because his parents make him practice every day, 30 minutes. And he said, well, yeah, I was there for 30 minutes. I said, well, what did you do? Because he said, well, I was distracted. And I said, well, what did you, I know you were distracted, but he said, well, he had just figured out a song from the radio that he was playing by ear. And so I used the Popular Styles ideas because he could play the melody, but he didn't know how to make a song. He didn't know how to add the accompaniment. And so I said, well, what band is it? What's the title of the song? What's the genre? Is it country or pop? He doesn't know. So there's a difference, right? It's important. They want to learn popular styles, they should know the difference. So his assignment was, who's the band and the title? What is the instrumentation? And at the next assignment, so this just happened, I want to help him listen to what's going on. And we did talk about, to create a piano solo arrangement, we need information about the bass line, what's going on in the bass guitar. We need to have information about the chord progressions, either with the guitar or the piano usually is rhythm and harmony. And we need to have a rhythm. Usually in those sheet music arrangements, the left hand is what the bass guitar is doing, right? The rhythm, projecting the rhythm of the song. So, Popular Sounds Resources. I'm sorry, people look like they're sort of fading away. So, and I know it's like, oh, wrap things up. I want to just talk about my experience teaching pop, and I hope maybe I'm preaching to the choir here, but I know it's, in my experience, it's always been a thing about teachers, like, staying with the classics and teaching pops. I think it's a great way to sell music theory. They learn their chords, they learn their keys, they learn their scales. It can be an incentive for them to count out loud and to feel the tricky syncopated rhythms. I know my big pop music was Carole King Tapestry when I was growing up, and I feel the earth move.